Hi, all. Episode 9 of Season 3 explores multiple sclerosis through the eyes of our guest, Diane, DJ Danga Dang, Palaganas. We're going to understand what living life through MS entails and how she uses her warrior strength to really go through the ins and outs of living a life with MS through creative means. I hope that you all enjoy this episode. Maayong adlaw! Welcome back to Season 3 of Pilipinx and Wellness. I am your host, Cheryl Sampson Ramirez. Following our last episode on substance use disorder and recovery with Cheryl Cambe, Colleen Capistrano, and Russell Ramirez, we'll be ending 2023 with MS warrior, former dancer, and hopeful DJ, Diane Danga Dang Palaganas. As mentioned in previous episodes, all views discussed are for informational and educational purposes only. It's not meant for medical advice. Always consult with your healthcare practitioner for your particular condition, especially before starting any exercise or new health program. For this episode, I'd like to welcome our guest, Diane, DJ Danga Dang Palaganas. Welcome to the podcast, Danga.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm honored to be here to share my story. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. We're honored to have you on as well. Our MO for starting our interviews is what every Filipino or Pilipinx individual asks the moment they discover you're a kababayan. Where are both sides of your family from in the Philippines, and where are you currently streaming from?
Both of my parents are from Pangasinan. I was born in Los Angeles and currently streaming from Long Beach, California.
Sweet. Now let's dive in to the title of our episode, Life of an MS Warrior. For those of us who are unfamiliar with MS, what does it stand for, and what does this condition look like across all of its stages?
So MS stands for multiple sclerosis. It's a neurological disease of the central nervous system. It's when immune cells attack the myelin sheath of nerves, and it disrupts the flow from the brain to the body. And it's different from each individual. Each individual has lesions in different places in the brain and in the spinal cord. So everyone who has MS looks a little bit different. It's very unique in that way. And there's 4 types of MS. There's relapsing remitting, where symptoms come and go. It's kind of like a roller coaster. Like sometimes symptoms get bad and then they get better and they get bad. It's on and off. Okay. And then there's also progressive MS. It's secondary progressive, where you don't really get new lesions anymore. It's just a steady decline of the disability.
Okay. And what form of MS do you have?
Right now, I have relapsing remitting. Mm-hmm. I haven't had any new lesions in the past maybe 4 years with the medication that I'm on, but I have noticed a decline in my mobility. So it's a gray area of trying to figure out if I'm going to progressive or if I'm still in relapsing.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, right now it's relapsing.
Okay. So do you go through all of the stages in a particular order, or?
I think usually maybe I'm assuming like 80% of people that do get diagnosed, it's relapsing remitting first, because they get like an onset of symptoms that are out of the ordinary, and then they get better. So it's usually going through that first stage of relapsing remitting, and then sometimes medications work and then they stay in relapsing remitting, and then sometimes the disease might be strong and it's just a steady decline. There's no cure, so it's always, and everyone's different, so it's always different based on every person and situation.
So the time frames can also vary.
Yeah.
For the stages. Okay.
Right.
Now, what's the demographic from what you know of those living with MS? Let's start with how does it look like across gender identification, race, ethnicity, age groups?
So when I looked at the National MS Society website, they said MS occurs in most ethnic groups, including African Americans, Asian Americans, Hispanic in the U.S., but it's most common among white people of Northern European descent.
Mm-hmm.
From my experience, that's visible. I usually see women, more prominent in women.
Okay.
It's very rare that I see Asians or even Filipinos, but it's probably because maybe they haven't come out with their diagnosis. I know when I was first diagnosed, I didn't tell anybody for a whole year, and I don't know if that's something that has to do with shame or something in that matter. But I'm wondering if there are more Filipinos or Asians that are diagnosed that haven't come out with their diagnosis yet.
And probably affecting the data.
Yeah.
Is there an average age of onset from what you know of?
I believe most people get diagnosed between 20 to 50 years old. I was diagnosed when I was 28, so I think that's about the average age range.
Okay. And how did you discover that you personally had MS? What was there an event maybe, or were there symptoms? What did that look like for you?
I think before I can share that particular moment, I'd share my backstory of what I was doing before.
Okay.
To pinpoint that point. So, my whole life I wanted to be a dancer. It's growing up, my mom listened to hip hop and R&B. It's like 80s, 90s, and she'd always make us dance in our living room. So dancing has always been a part of my life, and I've always wanted to be a dancer, pursue dancing. I was in drill team throughout grade school, and then I went to UCLA, studied the dance major there. I joined many, 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 many dance teams, also Samahang Modern at UCLA. After college, I joined Versastyle. Actually, during college, I joined Versastyle Dance Company in Culture Shock, LA. And I knew at that time I wanted to be touring and dancing with singers and being in TV, right? I think after college, joining these dance companies, I wanted to explore more of putting on shows and putting on events. And I was able to do that. I was learning more about hip-hop culture. And I was also learning about teaching youth and doing outreach and teaching kids. And at that time, I was trying to learn and dance as much as I could to be the best performer, dancer, creator I could be. And that was like working all day, every day, trying to consume as much. And I think during the time, there was a highlight of my life where I was dancing all the time. I was directing Culture Shock. I was full-time with Versastyle and also teaching at different schools around LA. At that high point, I noticed tremoring in my legs. That was the first thing that kind of caught me off guard because I'm pretty in tune with my body being a dancer, and it was something that was kind of weird to me. And at that time, I didn't have insurance, so as a performing artist, it's not uncommon to not have health insurance. So like whatever doctor I went to, I had to be strategic in trying to get the care that I needed because I didn't have a lot of money to pay for it. So at that time when I had the tremoring in my legs, I saw a chiropractor first, thinking it was a pinched nerve. Maybe that would make it better. And then I started to notice my right foot started to drag. And it was weird. I saw my primary care doctor and he was like, "Oh, you're just getting old." And I'm like, that's kind of odd because
so ageist.
Yeah. And I was probably 25, 26 at the time. Mm-hmm. And I thought it was weird. So of course I had to go elsewhere to get another opinion. And I had one doctor told me to get an MRI on my knee, and they found tendonitis, which is like inflammation in the knee. And so we did therapy on it. And once my knee started to get better, my ankle started to hurt. And then I had to see another set of doctors for my knee, my ankle. And then when I did treatment on my ankle, my hip started to hurt. So it was bouncing around in different places, and I didn't know what was going on. I was treating secondary aches when there was like an underlying thing going on that I didn't know of. Mm. And it went on for maybe 3 years, just jumping around from doctor to doctor, getting a bunch of MRIs, getting second, third opinions, until maybe my second neurologist that I found decided to do MRI on my brain and my spinal cord. And that's when they found lesions. And then they diagnosed me with MS. Whew, that's
Yeah, it's a journey. It sounds like it was a journey. I mean, 3-year journey, and a lot of seeing specialists, trying to figure it out. Were you exploring various forms of dance at the time, or were you mainly concentrating in hip hop?
I was doing mostly hip hop at the time, and with hip hop, there's different dance styles. So I loved hip hop. At the time, I was trying to dive into all of the elements, a little bit of graffiti art and a little bit of DJing, of course, dance. And I incorporated that into my teaching. I think once I started to feel my MS symptoms, I had to stop performing and dancing and directing, mostly focusing on teaching because that was making the income for me to see my doctors. So when I was going through that time, I had to stop altogether dancing and just focus. It was like trying to survival mode, trying to put my energy into trying to make money while trying to figure out what's going on with my body and trying to stay sane through it all.
And you were doing a lot. It sounds like you were in 2 dance companies. You're directing and teaching. Were you also driving around all over the place during these times?
I at that time I was not driving. I'm thinking I didn't have a car at the time, so I was doing public transportation everywhere I was going, which is like added on stress to what I was going through. And I honestly, I don't remember why I didn't have a car at the time. It might have been, I don't remember.
No, it's okay.
Yeah, it's been a long time. But then I do vividly remember public transportation during that time. It might have been like 3 years or 2 years or something.
So you got the news from the neurologist. What was that like for you when you received the news? What were your initial feelings around it?
My initial reaction was sadness. I cried. I didn't know what MS was at the time, and I cried because I didn't know, and then I went home and WebMD'd what it was, and I thought I was gonna die. I thought I was gonna end up in a wheelchair, and didn't know what to expect. I thought of all my hopes and dreams as a dancer come crashing down, and then thinking like, oh my gosh, it's unknown territory. I don't know what's gonna happen. I don't know what to do. I don't know how I'm gonna pay for it. So it was a lot of confusion and sadness and darkness.
It sounds overwhelming. When you think back on it, what do you think might have caused it?
I from my experience and my research, I feel in my own experience, I feel like it was probably stress related and the environment that I put myself in. I think because during that time I was under a lot of stress, and I felt like my body was in fight or flight mode all of the time, and it didn't know when to stop. So I think that's probably what sparked this autoimmune response of like attacking my cells, because it's trying to figure out what the stress is and how to fix it. And that's what I'm assuming. I don't think it's genetic, because nobody in my family has MS. And I don't think it's like like what I'm eating or anything like that contributed. I think it's the stress factor and environment that was part of probably what onset the MS.
And your specialists were on the same page of explaining the causes?
No, I feel as much as they know, there's a lot of things that they don't know. And like it's very different from person to person. So I don't think, I mean, they could give like generalizations of what they think it might come from, but from my own body and what I think, that's what I believe it came from.
So who did you tell next? You found out the news. Who did you tell next, and what was their response like?
The first person I told was my boyfriend at the time and now husband, Michael Lohr. He was by my side since the very beginning. We danced together, we taught together, we were living together, and he is my best friend, and he was the first person that I could think of to tell, to be openly honest and be like, oh, be vulnerable with this. And then my mom came second.
What was it like explaining it to them, and what was their response?
Well, they were probably in the same boat as I was when I first heard the news. They WebMD'd, Googled what it was, and then with my mom has been, she's been there. She's very supportive, and during the beginning she was there for all of my appointments, to be there to learn with me, to ask questions with me, because sometimes she works in the medical field too, with at UCLA with doctors, so she kind of knows a little bit more about the medical stuff than I do, or the questions to ask. So it was great having her there to support. But we were all on the same page, just learning about this unknown disease that we've never heard of or don't know anybody that has it. It wasn't like, oh, I know a person that has MS, you should go talk to this person and ask them questions about what you're thinking. It was like, we're in this together and we're learning together as much as we can.
What kinds of shifts did you have to make right after you found out that you had your condition?
So at the time I was teaching, I founded a dance program at KIP Illuminar Academy. I was teaching dance there, 20 classes every day. And
Gosh,
that's when, each class had like 30 kids. So at that time when I was going through the initial changes, I told my boss too, and she was very supportive. She got me a teacher's aide to like help do like the physical part while I was still able to teach, and she made it very accommodating for me.
I'm still shocked that you taught 20 classes a day. Like, how is that possible?
I loved it.
In an 8-hour day. How do you teach 20 classes in an 8-hour day?
Oh, each class was maybe 30 minutes. 30 minutes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was great. I loved it, but it did take up a lot of energy. Yeah, and so I had help in that way until I had to like choose to step back from it. I mean, I could have co-taught, but then I felt like I had to kind of let go of this job and like focus on my health and figure out how to be my best self before I can do any job where I can teach and share my gift or create. So I think health was my top priority at the time.
Okay, so you stopped teaching, and then what happened after? So were you still with the dance companies, or?
It was that at that time where I stopped dancing and I stopped teaching. And there were times where I tried to dance, like maybe I could still find a way to move, or maybe just move slower. And I didn't like it. I didn't like, my muscles would spasm. I would have poor balance, and it was just frustrating. Like, my husband was trying to do like easy movement, like easy stuff just to keep me moving, and like even like doing little jumps was so hard, and it was so frustrating. And I just stopped altogether because it was making me sad. And I think that was a time where I had to do a lot of inner work for myself. I actually got into yoga because it was still a way for me to like still move, but check in and see what's going on with my body. And I love how I'm able to not have and with dance, it's always performative. I feel like it's always performing, and you're trying to communicate something outward to another person. With yoga, it's all inner work. You being in touch with yourself and your mind. I think that's why I loved it so much, and I think that's where I transitioned to after I stopped dancing. And then I had my controller that I was using to teach my kids. When I was teaching dance with them, I taught them about all the elements of hip hop, and I bought a little controller that I didn't know anything about DJing, but I was like, oh, we can play with it. And then after I stopped dancing, I kind of looked to DJ to see if that was a way I could still be creative without being depressed with dancing and jumping around.
And that must have shifted a lot, even your social circles.
I think I retreated from everybody. Yeah. Being pushed to stop dancing and being around like all my friends that do dance, it was difficult. And for myself not dancing, it was difficult to be around that environment when there was a lot of dark feelings going on with my relationship with dance. So yeah, I was always retreating to myself or not going out and not sharing. And at that time, I didn't share my diagnosis yet. So I didn't even want to do anything or go anywhere or share, because it was always the expectation, oh, are you still dancing? Oh, are you not teaching? What's going on? Kind of thing.
Yeah. How did you maintain your livelihood after you stopped teaching?
I taught VIP kids. I taught English to kids in China. So it was great because I was able to teach. The only thing that was tough was the time change, because my work days would be from 1 a.m. to 5 a.m.
Oh, wow.
And then during the day it's like resting or appointments, and then sleeping at 6 o'clock to wake up again at 12 a.m.
Wow. So your whole schedule flipped pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
So tell us what it's like living with MS. What does a good day look like for you, and what might a challenging day look like?
So for me right now, I usually start my day. I have to plan out my day. So I have a planner, and I plan out what big things I have to do throughout the day. And something that my PT told me about was like I have like $1 of energy to spend throughout the day. So if I can spend a little bit throughout the day, by the end of the day, I'll probably have zero, but it'll last throughout the whole day. And I don't want to spend all of my money before 12 o'clock. Does that make sense? I don't know if that makes sense. But that's how I kind of have to think of my energy when I go day by day. It's like, okay, I have to make sure I have enough energy to get me through the day. And then I usually start off my day with a workout just to get my body moving. And then I'll go through my whatever appointments I have with, if it's other PTs or acupuncture or chiropractor. And then the rest of the day, it's like doing work around the house or helping my husband, and then adding a DJ session at the end. And I usually gauge my good days is if I'm able to walk and move without any pain and with energy at a good steady pace. A bad day would be my whole body is stiff. I can't. And like my body feels like 1,000 pounds, and I can't move. And even walking in my house is difficult. It's like I'm carrying like loads of 500 pounds on each leg. Those are the bad days. And then I'm not able to go through my schedule. And then I get sad, and like I have to take a nap because I'm so fatigued from trying to drag my body around. And then it's like, oh, it spirals. It's like, oh, I didn't get to do this. And then I get mad at myself. So that's like a bad day when all of my symptoms are like heavy duty. And then the good days are like, oh, I'm able to get a good workout. I'm still having trouble walking, but I'm still able to do everything I had planned on my planner.
And when the pain sets into your body, from a 1 to 10 scale, 10 being really high, 1 being low, how intense is it?
It can get as high as 8 or 9. And usually it's around 6 or 7. It never gets below 4.
And is it like a throbbing pain? Is it a sharp pain?
It's sometimes at different parts of my body, it's a different kind of pain. So my back, it's like aching pain. And then throughout my leg, it's like stiffness, heaviness. And even since the core that I feel when I walk is in my core and my back, if that's in pain, everything else is in pain. So I hope I can explain it where it translates, right? But that's how it feels.
And so your entire body is in pain all at once.
Yeah. And sometimes it's not pain, it's stiffness, or sometimes it's, I guess it would be like numbness. Like sometimes my hip flexors turn off and it won't like lift up my legs. So that's why it's like dragging all the time. Or sometimes my quads are on. It's like, and your muscle, there's like a point where it contracts and then relaxes, contracts and relaxes. And then sometimes it's just on all the time and there's like no relaxing. Unless I have to like stop and like breathe, kind of have to do like just sit and not do anything, or take muscle relaxers. But then muscle relaxers make me sleepy, so I don't try to do that all the time, but sometimes my body needs it. But it's always so mysterious and unpredictable because it changes all the time. Like sometimes I can walk normally just fine, and then some moments it's like I'm fighting myself just to walk a few steps.
And have you noticed the changes mainly physically, or have you noticed any other changes neurologically, or go ahead.
Most of my symptoms are physical. I think the lesions on my spinal cord contribute to the physical things that I feel. It's a lot of spasms. I think I have a few in my brain, but I know there's some other MSers that deal with optic neuritis so that they can't see in one side. I don't think I've had any of those types of experiences. It's been mostly physical, mobility-wise.
Got it. Okay, Danga, I think we're at the first half. So thank you for joining us for our 9th episode of Season 3. I'm talking with guest Diane, DJ Danga Dang, Palaganas. Feel free to take a quick stretch, refill your water or tea. We'll be right back after this quick break.
Yeah. If I fall, I stand up. Break these walls, I rise up. Even when I lose it all, I always got my eyes up. They praying on my downfall, but I'll never give up. 1,000 cuts won't be enough to keep my fists in these cuffs. And I'm never breaking down when the odds against me. Brown gold crown with the gods within me. Yeah. I was a flower that bloomed in the dark room. Flows like monsoons from the womb. When I write, move runes and resume. I grew to last soon. Prayed too many moons and my wounds would not bloom. Where we from? Death room, so we hum with these tunes. And hope it sparks light like a night in mid-June. My heart's consumed by hate here. It's harder when you live fear. How can you see clear when you don't see you in the mirror? I lost too many peers. They seem to disappear, but they're living through these words that I'm putting here. So tell me you'll remember me. I'm here to build a legacy. I got the ground moving under me. 1,000 cuts ain't never stopping me. And I swear I'm never giving up. Who I am or why I'm standing up. And I ain't ever need no ounce of luck to understand myself, cause that's enough. Yeah, that's enough. I can live 1,000 cuts. 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 Then live a life just covering up. What would you die for? What do you live for? When it's resistance.
Welcome back to Pilipinx and Wellness. You were just listening to the first part of Ruby Ibarra's single 1,000 Cuts featuring Anne 1, released in 2020. Ruby Ibarra is a rapper, director, and spoken word artist from the Bay Area, California, who released her debut album Circa 91 at the end of 2017 and has co-founded the Pinay's Rising Scholarship Program. Ruby's music is available on all digital platforms and can be heard in several museum exhibits, films, and television features. Shout out to all our Pilipinx artists and musicians out there laying down the tracks. Returning from our break, I'm talking with Diane, Danga Dang, Palaganas about living the life of an MS warrior. I adopted this title from your Instagram profile, Danga. So tell us, what does it mean to live a life of an MS warrior? What does that look like for you?
I think, living with MS feels like a fight every day. It feels like I'm fighting this disease every day. And I always, in my mind, I always think of like motivational videos that have like those athletes that train every day, they work hard every day, and it's always either fighting a battle or preparing to fight a battle. So I always come with that mentality of, moving, like continuing to move, to stay strong, to have a great positive mindset, a strong mindset, being tough, because there's times where MS feels like it'll throw a lot of different challenges at you, and it's always, you have to be ready to fight. To be honest, that's what it feels like all the time. And yeah, that's what it is.
And in your bio, you mentioned that you're a former dancer turned hopeful DJ. So tell us about your transition from being a dancer into being a DJ.
So when I was diagnosed with MS, I stopped dancing and I turned to DJing because it was a way for me to work with music where I didn't have to jump around or put stress on my body. I found a class at Scratch DJ Academy. They were doing this accelerated program, their whole full curriculum in 3 months, and I was like, oh, I should just do that and learn as much as I can about DJing and then see what happens there. So I took my first intro class and I fell in love with it. I love that I was able to listen to music in a different way, because when I stopped dancing, when all my muscles were spasming and I hated music. I hated music at the time because it made me depressed, because I wasn't able to express myself in the way that I wanted to. And I was being taught with DJing a different way to express myself that my body could handle. And I loved it. It was a way for me to create and learn, and that got me excited because it brought hope, like, oh, maybe I could do this instead. And I think that's where it grew. And then I get to do it everywhere. I don't expect to be playing at the clubs and doing making a really grand career out of it, but I do hope to be able to do meaningful events or hopefully create something that would be how my that kind of reflects how my dance career was in like DJ for.
I mean, that's pretty cool that you were able to channel your creativity into a different element of hip hop.
Yeah.
And still find a way to connect and love the music.
Yeah. It's interesting because I had to start back at ground zero of like learning foundations and being able to train my body, the muscle memory of like my hands and listening to music. It's great, but I feel like it's good because it sparks new neural pathways in my body and it keeps my brain sharp with MS. So I feel like it came into my life at the right time.
What kind of music do you spin when you're DJing?
Oh, of course I love hip hop, but I love funk music. I love funk music, and I love being able to fuse like hip hop and funk music. Anything that makes me want to dance or feels like dancing and funky. That's like my favorite. I do.
Cool.
Yeah.
What does treatment look like for multiple sclerosis?
So with MS, there's no cure. So they have disease-modifying treatments that help slow the progression. And I keep forgetting if there's maybe like over 16 different types. And it's for every MSer, it's different. It's kind of like trial and error. You have to try one and see if it works for you. Works in a way where you don't get any more new lesions. And if you do, they switch medication. So it's always trying to figure out which one works best with your body. The one that I'm on right now is Ocrevus, which is an infusion every 6 months. And so there's this is probably the third or fourth medication that I've tried. And on paper, I haven't had any new lesions, but my mobility is getting worse. So I always have to rely on other therapies to manage the physical symptoms. So I try acupuncture and chiropractic work, and then I do physical therapy. I think exercise is probably the best therapy to counteract all of the physical problems that I have.
And are there any side effects to the medication or the infusions or the medications that you've been on?
There are site reactions that I've experienced. I think depression might be. It's always hard to see if it's tied to the medication, or if it's due to MS. But I do notice depression once in a while. I think those are the main side effects. So mostly site reactions or water retention.
What do you mean by site reaction?
Like if you get a shot, it's like if
in the area
it flares up. Yeah, the site.
Got it.
The site of where you shoot yourself. I know. My first medication was Copaxone, and you have to inject yourself 3 times a week. 3 times a week, and those I had different kinds of reactions. Like I would get like ball-sized lumps from the site from where I injected, or like your body will flush. It'll get really red, or you'll feel like hot flashes. It depends on what medication you're on.
And to your knowledge, is there any medication or therapy out there to help slow down the progression?
There's 16 of them that are supposed to slow the progression.
Mm-hmm. Any that you're aware of or that you're currently taking?
I took Ocrevus. No, I'm taking Ocrevus. That's the infusion that I do every 6 months. That's the one I've been on for 4 years, and I haven't had any new lesions. So that's what's great about that one. The first one I had was Copaxone, and that's probably the safest medication out of all of the other ones, but it didn't work with my body. I kept getting new lesions with that one, so I had to switch.
When you're saying lesions, are you referring to lesions externally or internally within your body?
Internally. So with MS, you have immune cells that attack nerves, the myelin sheath around the nerves. It attacks it and it damages. So that's the nerve damage. And then it kind of like scabs over. It causes like a lesion. This is from what I've learned. And then that's what prohibits like the messages from
traveling,
flowing through. So
I wanted to ask you, did you have to make any dietary changes?
I didn't. I tried different dietary changes. I think when I first was diagnosed, I tried raw vegan to like clean out my system, but it's not sustainable. It was like really hard to do. And then there's like different protocols. Like there's this Walls protocol that's very popular with MSers, and it's kind of like keto, but it's a little bit more sustainable. Like I could do that every day. And I think for myself, just because I'm not able to do a lot of active stuff, I don't want to eat a lot of like heavy meats or a lot of heavy protein, because I'm not able to like work it out as I would if I was a healthy person. So I currently am doing keto. It's like low carb. I don't eat a lot of rice, although I miss it a lot. I've pulled back on that. And I did cut off alcohol. Yeah, it's been interesting. And I noticed when I did drink alcohol, like it would be harder to walk. And then I figured that would be like the best thing to do would be to cut it off, because I'm able to be more in control of my body, and it's just healthier for me. So that's what I'm on right now.
It's hard to walk for anyone that drinks alcohol, right?
Yeah.
What advice would you give to members of our community who may know a loved one who was recently diagnosed with MS? How can we best support other MS warriors out there? And maybe you can talk to even how those that are close to you have been supporting you.
I think for myself, what helps is to ask questions. I think communication is a big thing, because sometimes when you see someone, let's say like someone like myself that's limping or like struggling to walk, maybe you might not want to ask them or ask them what's wrong, or maybe you just ignore it. And some people might ignore it and just be like, pretend everything's okay. But for me, I love questions. I love when you're curious and you ask me like, oh, what happened to your leg? And then I can tell you more about MS. And it kind of makes me feel seen when you ask questions. And I know for myself, like my automatic default is like, oh, how are you? I'm okay. But when you dig deeper, or you ask like, oh, how are your symptoms today? Or how are you having a good day? Like when I can tell you more about it than my automatic like default. And I know with every MSer is different. Some people don't want to talk about it because they think it's draining. Like, it's draining for them to having to talk about it all the time. But for me, I love to share, and I love to be open about and be transparent about what I'm going through, as opposed to ignoring it and like letting me deal with it internally, or trying to make it seem like I'm okay when I'm not okay sometimes.
You mentioned that your mom has been going with you to medical appointments. And you're also married. So what are some other ways that they've been supporting you? And for those people, those of us in the community that are trying to find other ways to help a loved one possibly with MS, what are ways that we can be helpful?
Right. So my husband, he helps tremendously in ways where if I need to cry, he's there to like listen or to comfort me. I think that's a big thing, because it's always us trying to be strong all the time, or trying to do what we need to do. But then some days it's like really tough to stay strong at that moment, and then you just break down. To have someone there to like comfort you and help you look at the positive things, he's been really helpful in that way. And I mean, I could go on and on about how he's been supportive. I'm so grateful to have someone like him that's very positive and comforting. I love how, like, whatever, he's always wanting me to do things that make me happy. So like whatever DJ stuff that I want to do, he's always there to push me to do it. Sometimes I'll go through things where like, I don't know if I can do it. It's going to be like 4 hours. My body might not be able to do it. Maybe I'm not good enough. He'll always remind me of like I'm still capable of doing great things. Just that other side, when MS is like trying to like bring me down, he's always the light to like share and bring me up. For my parents, they've been supportive my whole life. I think this is just another phase of my life that they can still be the loving parents, and they always ask if I need them to come over. If I'm feeling sad, they'll always like try to make the drive out, or they'll take me out to eat or bring me groceries if I'm not able to like go grocery shopping. So I really appreciate them for being great parents. I feel so lucky to have such a great support system. I know a lot of people aren't able to have that support system, but I feel like I'm very blessed, and not just with my husband and my parents, my family, but my friends and my MS community that are always like cheering me on. I choose to be transparent on social media because it is hard, and sometimes moral support goes a long way to like keep your spirits up and to help you keep fighting every day.
I know you DJ a lot of MS events, or are they fundraisers? So what kinds of things does the community do to gather and to, I guess, raise awareness?
The one event that I've had a great relationship with is the MS Walk. So I've done the MS Walk in Long Beach. I remember when I first started DJing, when I graduated Scratch DJ, and then I was doing the MS Walk, and then my teacher, DJ Happo, was like, "Why don't you DJ at the MS Walk?" And I was like, "Whoa, this is the MS walk, and I'm like, I just started DJing. Like, how am I going to be able to DJ the MS walk? And then but I wasn't opposed to it. So I was like, okay, he was like, I'll go reach out to them and see if we could do something like, or maybe not even DJ the MS walk. Maybe we'll have like a booth or something, and then you could like spin there. I was like, oh, okay, maybe I can do that. And then so we reached out to them, and they're like, oh, we already have things in place. They had like a band or something, but maybe next year. So we kept in contact with them, and then COVID happened, and then I DJ'd online, kind of for them. I did like a fundraiser. I just brought awareness to the MS walk and streaming online. But then the 2 years after that, I was able to DJ at the MS walk in person, and it's been so fun because I was able to connect with other MS organizations, and if they were looking for a DJ, they would reach out to me. I did the Dunk MS walk, which was so much fun, and I love that I'm able to share my gift with the MS community and people that are going through what I'm going through too.
You said Dunk MS walk?
Dunk, like basketball dunk, yeah.
Oh, so do they play basketball and walk, or?
It's a fundraiser. It's they have a basketball clinic for kids to play basketball, and then they have professional dunkers put on a show.
Oh, that's
like a halftime show, dunking, and it's done at UCLA, my alma mater. So it was like so amazing that it was MS, and it was at my old college, and I got to DJ. So it was like, oh, this is so awesome. I mean, like, it was very meaningful for me, but being able to be a DJ in that way in an event like that, where it's so meaningful and purposeful in a bunch of different ways, as opposed to like being a club DJ and going club to club like that. I think I live for these kinds of events.
Mm-hmm. And for others that want to maybe participate in an MS walk, do you have to be living with MS to do the walk? Can you also be like a supporter or a family member or a loved one?
Yes, you could. If you want to support a loved one, it's open for you to walk. I think this is the time where it's so inspirational. I remember my first MS walk was the first time I saw other MSers in person. But then during that day, you see all of their friends and loved ones come out to support them, and they wear their t-shirts, their team t-shirts, and they bring like banners, and it's just and then they have like these little signs of like who you're walking for, and then you'll see like, oh, I'm walking for my mom, and it's so inspirational, and it just makes you feel like you're not alone, and you see your support and the loved ones you have. So it's always open to everybody, even if you don't know and if you want to experience it, it's open to everybody.
And does it typically take place at the same time every year, kind of like Pride, or?
I think in different locations they'll have a certain date for their location. I know in LA and Long Beach, it's usually around April time. I think that's around the time where all the different locations will host their MS walk. But I know there's like other locations that do it later on throughout the year, but it's usually around April in the beginning or springtime.
Cool. Being that we're a wellness podcast, Danga, we typically like to ask our guests what their wellness routines and self-practice consist of. Now, you've mentioned a few already. You mentioned yoga. You alluded to exercising in the morning. what does this look like, and what does your own wellness routine and self-care practices look like outside of DJing?
So I usually wake up early in the morning, early like 6:30, and I usually start off with my workout, my own workout. I have an elliptical at home and a treadmill, but it's usually my elliptical where I'm able to get a sweat. I'm able to get my heart rate up to sweat without having to like jog or anything. So that's where a lot of my it feels like I'm working out because I'm sweating starts. And at that time, kind of like yoga, it's like moving meditation where I love that when I'm on my elliptical, I could do it with my eyes closed and not have to worry about falling or tripping. It's kind of like internal, and then I can get lost in my music, or sometimes I'll record my mixes so I can play it while I'm exercising. And that's like my me time of just like checking in with myself and getting my body a little bit relaxed. And then I've done PT, physical therapy everywhere, and they've given me home exercise programs to do at home. So then I'll usually check in with my body and see what needs work. Like if my ankle has a hard time lifting up, I'll do strength and exercises on my ankle. Or if my back is having a hard time, I'll work on my back. So it's kind of like checking in on the elliptical and then figuring out what needs attention, and then doing my PT exercises to counter all those symptoms.
Do you do anything else for self-care?
I do yoga. I love to create, and I've tried to do new creative things. So I started crocheting to see if I liked it. I did like it. And then I did like mandala rock painting. I'm always trying to try new things to get that creative bug out there outside of DJing. So and then also like working on my fine motor skills. I noticed that my right arm gets very weak, so being able to crochet or paint kind of helps me work on my fine motor skills.
Nice. As we begin to close, how can our community find you if they have additional questions or would like to help support your journey?
Oh, I am on Instagram at _Danga_Dang. That's my main social media platform that I use. I'm also on Facebook and TikTok. Same thing, _Danga_Dang. I also have a website, djdangadang.com. And I also have a SoundCloud, same thing, _Danga_Dang, where I post a lot of my mixes and my music. I always think about how others can help me, and I always say like moral support is the greatest way. It's a great way. It's a free way. But then I also, for myself and how I need support, is like financial support. Just because I'm not working, I'm on disability, and a lot of times I'll ask my community if they wanted to do direct donations. They could Venmo me, and then I'll tell them where their donations go to. If it's like for MRI costs or my health insurance premiums, or I remember when I did, some people donated and I was able to get like handrails for my bathroom or like different things that I need. So there's always, they can donate to the National MS Society to help us find a cure, to help with resources, because I still reach out to the National MS Society to utilize whatever resources that I'm able to get. But then I also take direct donations if friends want to be able to help in that way, to directly help an MS, or they're able to do that at Venmo at Danga Dang. So those are different ways to connect with me and support me.
Any final words for our community before we close out?
I just want to thank you for letting me share my story and share my voice, and for bringing more awareness to multiple sclerosis. It's especially with our Filipino community. I want to be able to share my story in hopes that others won't feel ashamed of not sharing their story or being transparent with their diagnosis. And I want to thank you so much for having me on and listening.
Thank you, Danga, for talking to our community about your life as an MS warrior. We thank you for sharing your personal story with us to learn from as we continue to help you and our loved ones on their warrior path. We look forward to witnessing your journey unfold and are deeply appreciative for your willingness to be on our podcast as we close out 2023. And to our community, our next and first episode of 2024 will be with astrologer and self-care practitioner Marsha Pacificar. If you recall, we had Marsha when we first launched on Clubhouse, and we'll be inviting her back for a pre-recorded episode on self-care astrology. So what will 2024 look like for us? What should we pay attention to in the realm of self-care? We'll air this episode on Wellness Wednesday, January 17. As we close, we'd like to acknowledge once again our guest speaker, Diane, DJ Danga Dang, Palaganas, our graphic designer and beat maker for our opening and closing track, Ritchie, Ruby Ibarra for consent to use your track 1,000 Cuts featuring And One that you heard during our break. Our advisors, Alison De La Cruz, Rian De Los Reyes, and Safo Tialogo. Our community partners is Filipino American Life, SoCal Filipinos and Trek Table, and all of our community members for your shares and support. As always, we'll share more about our guest speakers' offerings on our Instagram stories and highlights for permanent access with any of their upcoming events. Be sure to follow us at Pilipinx in Wellness on Instagram, Threads, Facebook, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify, and on X at Pilipinx, the letter N, followed by the letters N and S. Don't forget to continue to hit like and subscribe on all our Pilipinx in Wellness channels, including YouTube. Thank you always for believing in us. Be well, everyone. Continue to take care of yourself and each other. Happy holiday.
Happy holiday, Merry Christmas, and Happy New Year.
Maayong Pasko ug malipayong bagong tuig. Have a good end of the year, everyone.